Why is the altered scale for Wimps? And what does this have to do with Encanto? So, a guy I know, happens to be a very good professional jazz guitarist, put up a fun little post the other day which just said, like, yeah, all the greats basically just go for it. And if you've got to use the altered scale over a dominant, you know, you're kind of copping out. It's a little bit for Wimps. And to explain what this means, I'm going to just quickly talk about the sort of thing that I might teach a student. And this is a question I often get when I do it, right? So we might be, for instance, learning how to play a 5-1, G7, or D minor, G7 to C major. According to Barry Harris, it's the same thing. So this is the Barry Harris sort of scale method, or at least Barry Harris line construction method. And you use, at least when it's starting out, you kind of use mostly the dominant or Mixolydian scales to construct your lines. Now, this scale has within it like other, what Barry Harris calls chords, 4-note chords, arpeggios, which are like, you know, 4-note triads doubled at the octave and triads and so on. You know, basically what most people call arpeggios of the chord. And a good example of that would be the fifth degree, which you can play as a, you know, minor seventh, or as a minor triad if you prefer, which is very useful as well actually. And Barry calls this the important minor. So if I'm going like, you know, if I'm playing my nice little 2-5-1, let me set something up. Do something like this, right? Play off D minor. Or you could use F major, right? It's nice. You can scale the diminished if you like. Okay. So they say, oh, that's nice, you know, a little bit smooth jazz, maybe if you don't use any connecting chord. But that's basically an idea, right? Very, very simple. And like Wes Montgomery loved that sound. He loved playing like F majors and D minor sevenths and things over G7 chords, right? So that's great. However, if we substitute it for a tritone chord, like a D flat 7, we can do exactly the same thing. So now I'm playing D flat 7 going to C major. Now if I do that, then I can do the same substitution. I can use the important minor. We have A minor 7 or A minor 9 or something like that, or just an A minor triad. If I add the 7th in, we get, well, let's see if you can hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. D minor, G7. Let's use B major as well. So, okay, so did you hear the thing that alarms people about this? Because it is this note here. Let me just play it for you again, see if you notice it. What is that terrible note? I bet you probably haven't even noticed it, which is that I'm playing an F sharp over the G7. Big deal. People go into, I wouldn't say meltdowns, but they get very confused about this, and then I have to have boring conversations about music theory to explain why it's absolutely fine. But the truth is, as you can hear, if it's linked to something, if it's linked to some obvious voice leading, it works absolutely fine. And this is why the altered scale's for Wimps, because the altered scale is still working on that kind of mindset where you think like, oh, it's a resolving dominant chord. Oh, but it's a dominant chord. I have to play something that matches up with a dominant chord over the top. It's like, no, you don't. To be fair, other YouTube video creators have done this. There's one by, I think, Music Theory for Guitar. I think Jamie Holroyd put one out the other day. You can play anything over a resolving dominant chord. It's like, yes, you can, Jamie. I don't even need to watch that. Pro tip: don't explain the video in the title. You know, you have to do something like the secret they don't want you to know at music college. You know. And obviously I lap this stuff up because I'm somebody who unironically uses the term Berkeley hegemony in my master's thesis. I'm basically you know, I enjoy the contrarian angle. But there's no doubt to me that that sounds absolutely great. All of that stuff, you know. Here's another one that shouldn't work. I'm just going to play like D minor, C diminished, and then C. Truth is, it's like, as long as you're going from A to B, anything in the middle that logically connects the A to B is going to sound fine, because everybody expects to hear a bit of dissonance. Dissonance is not a thing to be avoided. It's a natural part of music and has been for, well, forever. I mean, there was a sort of time in the 15th century when everybody just did triads for about 30 years, and then everybody got quickly bored of that and ended up doing like, you know, inventing modern counterpoint, you know? So it's like, dissonance is the spice that drives music forward, right? And harmonically speaking anyway. And I think it's a nice thing, and I don't know why jazz musicians are so frightened of dissonance. I mean, aren't they meant to be the people who experiment and play the weird improvised stuff? You know, aren't we coming out of the tradition of Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk or something? I don't know. Anyway, Barry Harris, when he talked about this particular chord, actually drew attention to the fact that you're playing the F sharp over the G7. In his opinion, it's a feature, not a bug. So, okay, fine. Berkeley's wrong, chord scale theory, blah, blah, blah. This is what we've come to expect from this channel. Actually, no, chord scale theory isn't wrong. It's pretty useful if you're hanging out over a single chord. You know, if you're playing a G7 and you go, you've got all these lovely notes which kind of extend and colour that G7, and you can hear people like Charlie Parker, you know, if not consciously using those sorts of scales, definitely like it's there. You know, he'll play a you know, Billy Strayhorn, whoever. Okay, fine. That's not what I'm saying. And actually, it's not what the chord scale books are saying either, because if you read the Berkeley chord scale theory text by Reformed Crook and East End Gangster and friend of the channel Barry Nettles, no, that's not true. But they say in the book, you don't always apply this stuff. And yet, somehow, people seem to think that the scale and the chord must always match up. I did this in my clickbait video about what I hate about chord scale theory. And I don't know how this has happened, because I don't think anybody who actually plays music really believes this. You know, like people who play music are just like, well, you know, I mean, I played it and it sounded good. Fine, big deal. You know, I have these resources I can use that I've got from my teachers, or maybe from a book, or maybe I heard, you know, Chris Potter doing it on a record or something, and I'm going to apply it in my own playing. And you know, I'm not like the music police sitting here going like, oh, well, Wes Montgomery played an F sharp over the G7 chord, therefore it's bad music. No, nobody who's an actual professional musician thinks this way. Okay, and yet I think students sometimes have the misconception that theory has this predictive power. It doesn't. So the F sharp is fine provided it's going somewhere. Okay then, so we've contextualized things a little bit more. What is the alternative model that might explain it? And it's actually really simple. It goes by a fancy name. I can't remember where I got this from. I think I was dweebing out about medieval music like Guillaume de Machaut, and somebody had this term cadential efficiency. I was like, oh, what does that mean? Basically, what it means is that you want to maximize the amount of semitones going from one chord to the next. So if you already practice your changes, you should be kind of alive to this already. If I'm doing something like All the Things You Are, I start on an F minor chord. It's a semitone into B flat minor, B flat minor 7, and then the semitone into E flat 7, and the semitone into A flat major, right? That's the sort of thing you need to listen out for. And you know, like this chord progression wouldn't have been unusual for Bach, you know, or any of those sort of 18th century composers. They all would have understood that. So the semitones, okay, so what semitones do we have in the major scale? Well, we have 4 going to 3 and 7 going to 1. 1, 2, put the 4 and 7 together and we get this. Oh, well, that's a G7 going to C major. Okay, and a quick nerdy aside, if you go to 18th century music theory, at least early 18th century music theory, they didn't think about the scale the way we do today. They had this weird, complicated and convoluted Gideon Guidonian hexachord system. You can find out more about that from Learn Partimento podcast or Adam Neely's fantastic video about tritones. But basically what it's meant is like anytime you get a semitone, pretty much it was mi fa. So this is mi fa, weird as that might seem, we'd say C dull today, but mi fa fa mi, and that's what Bach was talking about when he was saying mi fa fa mi is all you need to know in music. Basically saying like the semitones, bro, that's the thing that's important, right? And obviously it's the thing that drives this cadence, right? Also, Diabolus in Musica, nothing to do with the devil, as Neely points out. It's just like a joke. Me against fa. Fa, fa, mi. Okay. So that's one thing. If we go into now, the thing where it becomes, I suppose, a bit more interesting is where we alter the diatonic key to give us more of this stuff, and we have to do that in minor, because if I just play like the 4 going to the 3 and the 7 going to the 1 in natural minor, it's not really very interesting. It doesn't do much. You get this. Sounds a bit, well, medieval really. So that's basically the sound of E minor going to A minor. So as you probably know, if you have any kind of school music theory or anything like that, you raise the 7th and that gives you sorry, what I'm doing. A little bit more going on there. If you want to extend that chord a little bit, this is basically an E7, right? You can add in the flat 9th. That gives you an extra tritone. An extra semitone. And the nice thing is, as with the major, they go in different directions. Okay, so that's nice. And then we can do the same thing to the major. So a common thing that started happening 18th century, and then became really popular in the 19th century, and then into jazz, is if we alter the sound of the major scale. And Barry Harris people are going to recognize this, right? So we flatten the 6th, that gives us another semitone going to 5. So we get this. So it's better voice lead in the second one, right? And then you do that with the 6th chord as well. And the Barry Harris scale, right? Or harmonic major if you're part of the Berkeley hegemony. Anyway, so the flat 6 going to 5 is very intensifies because we've added more tritones in. Well, how can we add more tritones in? How can we add more semitones in? I beg your pardon. The transition from this kind of, I suppose you could think of it as a G7 flat 9 chord to C major, is intensified by the inclusion of more semitones. It's got 3 semitones. The major key normally only has 2, so that's like better. It's more. How can we continue to develop this? Well, of course, we can add in another semitone. What semitone could we add in? Well, we could go mad with power. Let's add in a flat 2. Let's add in a flat 2, the key. So this would be then the flat 5 of the G7. Oh, that's quite spicy, isn't it? So like this kind of thing. Yeah. And that's pointing us in a direction of kind of what we might think of as a tritone substitution. Okay, so here's some friends we've made along the way. There's literally endless combinations of this stuff, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things. First of all, it's quite common for bebop era musicians to play G13 into C minor, like this. Okay, G13 into C minor 6th. Oh, sounds great. Okay, so you can hear them do stuff like this, for instance. Or, Wes Montgomery. Charlie Christian is often heard playing things like this. So that's like, in that case, it's D minor 6th going to C minor 6th. And then, you can always add more semitones in. But the main thing is that if I take this in here, and we've got the 13th chord going to minor, then you can get also the 13th flat 9 sound, which is Peter Bernstein's favourite, going to that. So, that's cool. And that kind of opens the window into like the G half whole scale or whatever. Okay, if you're going to a major seventh. I don't really see the point of having that as a pedal. Doesn't add to the cadential efficiency. So I just use a minor chord. It's nicer. It's even nicer if you use a half diminished. So, cool, huh? Also, you know, what about adding in the 11th as well? So we get like a, yeah, this kind of sound. So sounds pretty cool, I think. You know, this kind of thing. Yeah, I like that. So another one. E over G going to C major, 7th this time. Now we've got, if we just went, they're all moving in the same direction, might be a bit boring, by having these two tritones in oblique motion, which means a pedal tone stays the same in the middle. Sounds very nice. Okay, just a few ideas, okay? What's the most efficient cadence we can come up with? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask that. It is our friend the D flat dominant scale. Straight out Barry Harris, okay? Every note in that is not in a C6-9 chord. So if I take a C major pentatonic, the same as a C6-9 but ordered differently, C major pentatonic, every note that isn't in C major pentatonic is in the D flat Mixolydian scale. I was very excited when I found that out. I should really get a live, shouldn't I? Anyway, so that is how that works, and it like gives you a whole chromatic circuit, basically, a whole chromatic gamut. Or you know, I'm sure Schoenberg would be excited about that. Except probably that's just like peanuts to him. He'd be like, yeah, so what? I knew that when I was 12. You know, it's like, but it is, you know, if you look at it differently, every note in that it wraps around the C6 or C6-9 chord, whichever you want to resolve to, beautifully, and it does it in a way that the altered doesn't. Because the altered, it's like squeamish because it's for Wimps. It's like, oh no, that G, I'll have to preserve that G. I couldn't possibly not have that G because otherwise we'll have the major 7th over the G7 chord and I can't cope. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It sounds amazing. Examples of real world lines. Night in Tunisia. Okay, very nice. I mean, technically it goes with D flat 7, but you know, it works great over A7 as well. A teasing note, a dissonant note, an expressive note. Don't be afraid of dissonance. It's a spice of life. Okay, even I have not been immune to the popular culture colossus that is Disney's Encanto and the remarkable genius of Lin-Manuel Miranda. Okay, so you know, anyway, I'm basically brainwashed. It's basically this. How cool is that? This is the most efficient cadence, going from A flat minor 13, basically an A flat Dorian melody, to C minor. There is none more efficient than that. This is basically, I think, a much more creative way to think about the whole thing of getting chord A to B. I mean, it's not that weird or out there. As I say, YouTubers, and even Amy Naughty has done one about it. You know, it's like, it's kind of normal. It's just the people seem to get the wrong impression of textbooks. Like Jacob Collier has basically made a career out of finding convoluted ways from getting from A to B. And, you know, if he's got 4 notes to get from, you know, an A to a B in a chord, he's going to divide it, well, 3 beats, he's going to divide it into divisions smaller than a semitone. And the thing is, it still works because you're going from A to B, right? I mean, that's how dynamic harmony works. Anyway, I hope you find that interesting and stimulates your creative juices. And if you have any comments, please post below, especially if they are completely unconnected to the video. I always enjoy that. The other thing is that please like and subscribe. do the little dingy bell, because people seem to not realise that I'm doing the videos, and I'm sure while, you know, obviously this is very sad for them, you know, we wouldn't want them to continue without the guiding light of my wonderfulness in their existences. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.